Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today, Christian Darrisaw's future deal, another record breaker for the Vikings.
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. We got the best two words in sports tonight. Game 7 Stanley Cup. Go Edmonton.
Hi, I'm Arif Hasan from the Wide Left Substack. I spent all weekend, for some reason, watching Adam Sandler movies, and I'm mad.
And I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I'm very happy that Arif had a bad weekend.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next-level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Brand new week on the Minnesota Football Party. Welcome in to Locked On Sports Minnesota. We appreciate all of you who watch, whether it is live right now on the YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Please subscribe, watching us on demand, or listening to us wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, where Luke Braun is producing excellent content 5 days a week. Also, hear us on the SiriusXM app. We're so glad you've joined us today to hear about our analysis of the future Christian Darrisaw deal. Could the Vikings come out of nowhere and extend Darrisaw like the Lions did with Penei Sewell? We'll also get into the concern of wide receiver 3. How much of a concern is it? And we'll also have our latest Rankum. Today's Rankum, the best out of nowhere Vikings QB seasons in team history. Sam Darnold trying to join that group. We've had a lot of fun with our recent Rankums, and that's what we'll get into today. You've met Luke Inman, Luke Braun, Arif Hasan. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Take advantage of that fantastic new promotion. Happy summer, everybody. It's officially summer. Had the solstice over the weekend, June 24th. We're in the football abyss, about a month until training camp begins. We continue with some contract talks. Last show, we talked about extension candidates. Byron Murphy's name came up. Cam Bynum's name came up. We did not, however, get into a whopper of an extension candidate, Christian Darrisaw. I think conventional knowledge would indicate that they probably wait till after year 4 to get that done. But then you look over at Detroit, and they set the market with Penei Sewell. After 3 pro seasons, he signs for $28 million per year. So out of nowhere, could the Vikings get that deal done with Christian Darrisaw before this season? The last gift of Rick Spielman, as I like to call him, Christian Darrisaw. Luke Inman, Christian Darrisaw's future as a Viking. Think that contract is going to get done this year?
Yeah, you're right. Could they extend him this year like the Lions with Penei? Yeah, they could. Will they? If I was a betting man, I'd probably bet no. I mean, just with everything we just went through with the JJ deal, it just feels like it's probably more likely they waited out one more year, just going off everything that we know with Kwesi's tendencies. Again, the JJ deal, all the stress and pressure that took all summer, going back to last year as well. And I think that's fine, too. I don't think this is a big, maybe a topic or needs to be a big dramatic talker either going into next year. I'm sure they'll get a deal done. I don't really see a ton of massive advantages of doing it now as opposed to waiting one more year. You got him inked through 2025 with that 5th-year option. So he ain't going nowhere. It's not like he can test free agency out after this season. I mean, he's locked in. So, yeah, I mean, the Lions, okay, let him reset the market with Sewell this year. That's fine. Next year, cap probably goes up again, most likely. And then it's between Darrisaw. Rashawn Slater should be in the mix as well in LA. They can reset the market again by another, I don't know, $1 million and change, something like that. At the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference unless you think it's going to be substantially higher than, what is it, $28 million per year that Sewell just got. I can't imagine it would be, but I think you just let him play out this next year here, this 5th year, and then you get the big extension heading into the 5th year option going into 2025. So if I was a betting man, I'd bet no. Again, they just signed this JJ deal, man. Biggest non-quarterback deal in the history of the NFL. They probably want to let the dust settle, maybe take a deep breath before they got to go knock on Ziggy's door in the office and go, hey, dude, can you open that checkbook up again? I know you just went to U.S. Bank, but we need another like 60, 65 mil. Can you run over there? Maybe make it 70 just to be safe. Like, I think one record-setting contract was probably enough stress and pressure to get done for one off season at the end of the day.
And Ziggy, while you're there, could you get McCarthy's signing bonus up front? We need $12.8 million.
He's going to hold out.
Just get that out of the ATM also. Yeah, I feel as well like if you wait this year and Christian Darrisaw has the best tackle season in all of football, I'm not sure you're spending that much more in the extension than you would this year. You're probably setting the market either way. It might just be an issue of what, 5-10 million over the course of the deal. Luke, Braun, any different thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think Darrisaw says yes to an extension right now because I think there's more money on the other end of it. And that's why I think that rarely gets done. And I don't think Sewell should have said yes to the contract when he did, because I think that'll actually age really well for the Lions. And then
set it by a pretty good margin, though. I mean, it was 25, I think, was the market setter, and he beat it by $3 million per.
Yeah.
But it will.
So
it'll still age well.
So Brad Stevenson's been cooking between the Amon. I don't remember if we talked about the Amon Ra deal getting done right before JJ, because they probably saved some good change, at least in the guarantees.
I don't know, because
at least in
they paid him more. Didn't he get more than? Didn't St. Brown get more than Waddle and Devonta Smith?
Yes.
But I guess he's the wide receiver one, so yeah, I guess. That makes sense.
No, you're right. Four over 120.
Okay, so unless Luke has more to add.
No, go ahead.
The guy who was asked a question, not you.
Well, real quick. Yeah, I don't think Darrisaw says, like, I don't think it's a matter of, like, is it smarter to do it now or do it next year? Like, it's going to be cheaper to do it now. Darrisaw knows that. Why would he say yes? And if Sewell waited another year, he'd be making more money now, too. Like, it's kind of the same deal. So I don't think so. I think the real thing is going to be the real market setter, and it might be Rashawn Slater, honestly, but it's going to be whoever goes last. Like, that's kind of always how it goes.
Yeah. So I would be cautious about treating Penei Sewell as this meteoric contract. So he in the history of right tackle contracts, this consumes more as a percentage of cap. Right, we've talked about how that's a pretty useful, if not, if an incomplete indicator of a contract's actual effect as the cap rises. So yeah, 28 million is more than anyone else. But also, we haven't seen a premier left tackle signed this season. In 2023, we had, I think, 2 extensions, Tunsil and Andrew Thomas. This is less than the percentages that both of those got, but because those were last year, they were smaller, right? And so Trent Williams, Laramie Tunsil, Andrew Thomas, among active tackles right now, at the time they signed, consume a greater percentage of the cap as a function of their average per year. And so for a right tackle, Penei Sewell's contract is incredible. It's fantastic. It's somewhat close, actually, to Brian O'Neill's as a percentage of cap. I think Darrisaw knows that he can get 11.5 to 12%. So Sewell's is 11% even. He can get 11.5 to 12%. Just as a left tackle, his market is just going to be a little bit better, fair or not. And so I think waiting makes a lot of sense. Doing it in 2024 produces less money just because you don't get access to cap expansion. But also you get deadline effects that forces that. Like, the Vikings have signed a lot of extensions during the 5th year option year, and that has probably hurt them a little bit in terms of cap space because the players know that they're going to get more as a percentage of cap and also later in the cycle, which means the cap is going to be larger. So even if they got 10% both years, it would be bigger the second year that they did it. So I think that there's just a lot of incentives for players to wait. The Vikings historically have not offered a lot of incentives for players to sign early. Historically is tough because the Vikings front office is relatively new, but I think that that's a useful guide here. So I don't think they'll get Christian Darrisaw extended. It would be good for the team if they did. It would not be good for Christian Darrisaw if they did. But we should be careful in that, right tackle and left tackle contracts are evening out. This is an example of that. Among all tackle contracts, this is 4th among active in percentage of cap and 7th among historical contracts percentage of cap. So it is a huge contract, but it's not the biggest contract at the position.
Have we ever seen a team that's just sitting on a lot of extra cap space and is ready or primed to go sign a big extension to one of their core kind of players, kind of front load a contract? Like I'm a team, I'm a GM, I'm sitting here with all this extra cap space. Like just for example, Vikes have 25, 26. Let's just say it was the Browns who had 40 or 50. And if I don't use this money, I'm going to lose it, so to speak. So maybe
it carries over, right?
Chunk.
Does it carry?
Does it all? Or is it year to year?
Yeah. All additional cap space rolls over. Yeah. So it feels like that makes sense. I used to do that in Madden a fair amount, where I would front load my
maybe
contracts.
That's where my
so
Madden brain's going. Yeah, that's where I got that.
But that was more it was useful for me as a governor so that I wouldn't put myself in cap hell later. In actuality, it is better to backload contracts, like strategically speaking, just because of the nature of cap expansion. And so it feels like, hey, if you've got a lot of cap space, why don't you front load it? But because it rolls over and because you're essentially borrowing against negative interest, it is better to wait for that to hit. And then also, we really only care about the first 3 years of a deal because then a deal is going to be reworked. So if you backload a contract into the 4th, 5th year, that's not real.
You're not really.
Which players are wising up to too. So it's getting harder to just like put a bunch of fake money in.
Yeah. Like JJ's cap doesn't really affect anything until year 3. Year 3, year
Which is crazy because he gets the money right away. But the cap
Brzezinski does that with basically every contract. The first 2 years are like small, and then it's year 3 the money kicks in. That's been the way Brzezinski has done it since like 2014.
Which is what's happening with the Sewell contract. The first 2 years are relatively small. If I'm going to take a look
it's a pretty popular contract structure.
Yeah,
for obvious reasons.
$8.2 million in 2024, $9.6 million in 2025 in terms of cap hit, and then it rises to $28 million in 2026. It's almost the exact same structure as the Jefferson one, where you've got a signing bonus year 1 and an option bonus year 2. So he gets a lot of the money in cash, and the Lions accounting pays for it in like 2028.
That's wild. I'm so heartened by the Vikings cap health. I just want to state that.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
So fun.
Feels good.
knowing that
Warm
next
fuzzies.
March.
Yeah. Warm fuzzies. Pretty bad defensive roster, but boy, it feels good to have money to not spend.
It sure does. It really does.
Gonna carry $27 million all the way through this 5-12 season. Let's go.
I just look at my QuickBooks account and I just sigh in relief. Look at that.
Kick my feet up on the desk.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Watching Jonathan Bullard get washed down the river for the 4th rushing touchdown of the day against Detroit. But God, this cap space looks great.
Too real. Stop.
Look, there's no parentheses around the number. I feel so good.
It's in black text, not red.
Not in red.
Hey, we tried to sign Christian Wilkins, guys, so you can't be mad at us. We tried.
we gave it the old college try. That's right.
So, I only because I brought it up, I'll put a bow on it. I brought up that St. Brown contract. So he signed a 4-year, 120. JJ signed a 4-year, 140. I'm just thinking if St. Brown signed after JJ, and I'm negotiating St. Brown, I'm asking for 2-3 mil per year less than JJ. So that 4 over 120 turns into like 4 over 130, 132-ish, plus more guarantees as well. To Luke's point, I think Brad Stevenson might be cooking a little bit and has 2 good deals now of 2 good core players locked up on what feels like pretty fair deals, I feel like, over the next few years.
I think Brad Holmes is the name.
I don't know why I keep saying Brad Stevenson.
That's the Celtics.
Brad Holmes
we're talking Wolves, Celtics.
It's the Lions, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think you're right. I mean, the Lions have just made a lot of savvy moves. Counterpoint, Darrisaw, concussion history, a little bit of lower body stuff. if he did have something that kept him out for half a season, like, so it didn't affect JJ, right? JJ missed half the year, didn't affect his contract at all. But at the left tackle position, maybe a little more attrition there. We've seen a little more injury stuff with Darrisaw. I do wonder what that would do to the negotiations if there was like 8 to 10 or more games missed. Yep.
I don't think a small injury. I think for it to affect a negotiation, like, it has to affect your future, right? Because you're buying what the guy is going to do in the future. So if you're coming off a hamstring that is clearly not going to affect anything, like, that's why it didn't affect JJ's contract. If JJ had the Daniil Hunter injury, yeah, that would have affected the contract.
Right. I was about to
like,
say,
if you have an Achilles, that's going to affect the contract. If you twist your ankle and, you miss a little bit and they're overly cautious with you because the season's not going well, like, that's not going to change much at all.
It is funny that Jefferson returned, right? Like, the fact that he decided to come back and play is just
how
kind
about
of
that?
amusing. Yeah,
I was told he wasn't going to.
Was not on the field.
Yeah,
was not on the field for a win, right? Like, they beat the Raiders when he was in the hospital, but did not actually walk off with a victory from the moment he came back, which is
he just loves the game.
It's not about the money. I just love the game. I just want to be on the field. I just pulled up the 2025 just top free agents. There's about 4 or 5 kind of top heavy, and then it drops off quick. Cam Robinson, Garrett Bowles, Taylor Decker, Joseph Noteboom, and Ron Stanley. Stanley's been in the league 10 years. That's insane. Oh, Tyron Smith is the 5th guy. Then kind of a big drop off. So I mean, there's some names in there, but
I don't like that.
It would be insane to be looking for a tackle in the next 2 years. Something would have had to
be a catastrophic failure. Yeah.
Yeah.
O'Neal signed through 26, by the way, which feels like that's a contract they probably let expire. I think it'll be like 32 at that point.
He's going to want to redo it because he's got no guarantees next year. So I think he's going to want to do a restructure of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't think it stays the same from here until then.
Yeah, which means it'll probably be extended into 27, 28. I mean, that's just how these restructures work.
Just kick the can. More cap space they can sit on next year.
Yeah.
When we return,
they can do the kick the can thing for 15 years now because they're they did the full reset and cut everybody.
Yep.
Wide receiver 3. How big of a concern is it for you guys with the Minnesota Vikings? That's next. Brought to you today by FanDuel. Let me tell you what's going on this summer at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. We all love sports. We never want them to stop. But in the summer months, they slow down. After Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, we got no hockey. We got no basketball. We're still waiting on football. Yes, we've got the WNBA. Yes, we've got the MLB. But there are fewer sports. That's not sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel keeps the sports alive. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking all customers up, not just new customers, all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. I see the Lynx are underdogs tomorrow. What's the deal with that? +5.5 on the Lynx. Do it now at FanDuel. Make every moment more.
WNBA is hot, Sam. Let's not. WNBA is hot. Let's not diminish how awesome the WNBA is.
Did I diminish it? How did I diminish it?
You just said there's no sports. So you came back around to say there's the WNBA. I'm just saying there's sports.
So Arif, let me tell you.
The ad read fell down 33-0. It came back.
Dude, don't be a Brad Stevenson, dude. Beat Brad Hall. Come on, man.
We're in June mode.
We are in full summer solstice mode, bros. Okay.
There are some words that I read from the script, and then there's a part of it where I add stuff that's important to me. It's called, the personalization of the read. So I did my duty, right?
I don't know. I don't do ad reads, so.
And then I added the bit about the WNBA because I thought it was important. Go Lynx. Now, why are they underdogs? Are the Liberty one of the teams above them?
Yeah, so Liberty have gone undefeated for the entirety of the Commissioner's Cup season. So this, by the way, this Tuesday is the Commissioner's Cup, which is not that important to a lot of people, but the winners get a $100,000 salary boost, which is pretty significant.
This is huge. This is huge for them.
But yeah, the Liberty have gone undefeated over the past 2 weeks. Essentially, they're killer.
What's the parallel to the NBA? They're like the Celtics, the Boston Celtics.
I don't follow the NBA well enough to know. I follow the WNBA.
This is the in-season tournament.
Did I have that on my bingo card today?
Yeah, this is basically the in-season tournament. I will say this though: the Lynx are probably, from advanced metrics, the best team in the league. So it shouldn't be that significant of an underdog. They're the only ones top 3 in both offensive and defensive per possession metrics.
Well, going into the weekend, they were number 1 in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage, and defensively number 1 in opponent field goal percentage, opponent 3-point percentage. So they're
killer. It rules.
Of the top 7 3-point shooters in the league, I believe.
But the other team is 3 incredible all-stars, right? So that's the thing. The Lynx are one of the only deep teams in the league. The Liberty's top end is incredible. The bottom end is all injured, so they're only going to play 8 players. But the top end's great.
Locked on Lynx with Arif Hasan.
How did I get here?
I don't know. FanDuel.
A lot of people got here.
Hot news.
Yeah. We're all sucked in by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Cameron Brink, and now here we are.
Rip.
Everybody's at WNBA
Cameron Brink,
fans.
Rip. Yeah. Wide receiver 3, Alec Lewis of the New York Times /Athletic identifies wide receiver 3 as the biggest Minnesota Vikings concern. Would you agree with that assessment, roster-wise, going into the season, Luke Braun?
I'm a little bit hesitant because that's a rotational role. That's not a guy that's going to be on the field all the time. In terms of the difference between who they have and what a comfortable starter would feel like, I'm still a little hesitant to say that over defensive tackle next to Harrison Phillips. But I thought Jonathan Bullard did okay last year. I know I was giving him crap earlier, but it was all right. So I guess I could hear that argument. I would also put in the third cornerback. Was that a Caleb Evans right now? There's young guys that fell apart or guys that need to step up. There's a lot of
second cornerback
kind of
Shaq
unclear.
Griffin. That's not
right.
2 through 5, very murky beyond Byron Murphy.
Yeah. So, and that, you're going to have a player who projects to be an issue on the field every single play at multiple positions on defense.
Yes.
That's a big problem, which is why I'm kind of critical of them just walking into the season with $27 million cap. You could have maybe rearranged the order of events here where you could have been more aggressive about that. But I don't know. I guess it's just a year off because it's a Sam Darnold year. So.
Yeah, there you go. On offense, there's 6 players that you just got to have out there. It's the 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback. And you could do whatever you want. Obviously, you want a strong wide receiver 1, so it's not quite as cut and dry as that. But if your wide receiver 3 is bad, put out a second tight end instead. It's fine. I'm a huge, you should probably be an 11 personnel a lot guy, but I think the last 2-3 years have shown us that the data on how good 11 personnel is has been dependent on how often people do not use 11 personnel. And so it's not as huge of an advantage to be good in 3 wide receiver as we originally thought. It'd be good to have it, but that's a nice to have. As For Funds in the chat points out, the interior of the O-line is one of those positions that is, I think, to me, a greater concern because you got to put out an interior O-line. You can't just be well, okay, we'll just have 3 tackles.
Hey, they have Reisner in the building now. They're just not going to play him.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Could be the same group as last year, and they are choosing not to.
So offensively, I think the interior offensive line is a bigger issue than wide receiver 3 because you could just throw a tight end out there or whatever. And the talent drop off at wide receiver 3 is not that dramatic to me. Defensively, there's just a lot of concerns. Cornerback 2, cornerback 3, cornerback 4, defensive tackle 2, defensive tackle 3. There's just a lot of concerns. You don't have to put defensive tackles out there. You could put edge rushers out there at those positions. You're probably going to have a bad time. But it does help to have a third edge rusher like the Vikings have. It's still concerning to me that the defensive tackle position is in the state that it's in. Linebacker too. I like Blake Cashman, but Ivan Pace could do the one thing really well.
Right.
The one thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, back to the old Ivan Pace overrated, underrated debate. I think that, and I'm the president of the KJ Osborne fan club, always have been, but to say that, because I think people deemed it borderline a strength, their wide receiver depth last year with Osborne. And
and we were like positive about
overrating
Jalen Naylor, and we were like,
Right.
something is going to emerge from this that's like nice.
People got really mad at KJ Osborne because of a couple of drops, so they were
It's-
like, "Bye bye."
yeah.
And then now he left, and they didn't replace him, and everybody wants him back. Funny
We're
how that
thirsty
happens.
now.
he had
Yeah.
7 of
The-
those last year.
the
But
And New
2022
England's got like
Osborne
6
was-
wide receivers now. All of a sudden,
That was sick.
Yeah. The 2022
Can I just say,
Osborne
he's
was
such a
fantastic.
patriot, though. Like
He
it worked.
is.
He is
We
such
talked
a
about that.
just
Yeah.
spiritually a patriot. It makes
Does
so
the
much
dirty
sense.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
I was
guys
gonna say,
hear the Adam
the-
Thielen interview where he said apparently Bill Belichick was trying to trade for him after 2019 after they got that little riff?
oh,
Nice.
That's funny.
and
That's
it was
funny.
like, yeah, you are a patriot. We could see it. Okay.
he is white. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, well, he's white, but also he'll
And-
block a linebacker out of the slot for no reason. So that is very patriot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
great.
KJ Osborne's 2022 and 2023 were not that different, except for a couple of drops. His 2022, everyone was in love with him, which I mean, fair enough. I was there too. 2023, people were mad at him, and it was like 3-4 plays. That was like kind of the difference.
yeah, so this is the Jefferson effect, I think. And if you look at Thielen's efficiency, also pretty bad, like when he was on the field with Jefferson in 22. But yards per route run, KJ was bottom 5 each of the last 2 years. And is that all Jefferson, or was he a little bit overrated? Like I think that might be.
It's usually a combination. When a wide receiver 3 is relatively low in yards per route run, it's typically a combination of the target share of a dominant receiver like Justin Jefferson, and perhaps some element of talent expressing itself. So I would imagine it's 2, but you cannot disaggregate the fact that Justin Jefferson is fairly a target suck. Like you can't get out of that. So it is tough to, in those scenarios, completely use yards per route run, though I think it is fair to point that out.
I think Hawkinson is somewhat of one too, and then Addison
Yeah,
joins the party in
that's the thing,
23.
too.
Like
I mean-
there's a lot of people that are going to get targets away from you, which
Yeah.
is the other part of why like wide receiver 3 maybe doesn't have to be that big of a problem, because you do have at some point in the season, hopefully you have Hawkinson coming back.
The way people are talking about Hawkinson is now people are expecting him back earlier than week 8 is the way people are talking about it. I haven't seen
Kevin
it.
O'Connell said the pup or IR thing, and it kind of implied 3 to 6 weeks instead of
And
like,
the
Yeah.
pup is 4 now, not 6.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
maybe
so it very much seems
Yeah.
like
so that's in people's heads,
They'll get
but
him
it's still very
for-
up in the air.
yeah, we have no actual
Yeah.
news, but it very much seems like the way people are talking about it now is like maybe 5 weeks, maybe 6
watch
weeks.
TJ Hawkinson just doggedly rehab and like play through this thing
He's
starting
going
in
to
week
destroy
5.
that ear infection.
1 year after the ear infection bit.
That's it.
Inman, what do you got on this?
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. Probably number 4 on the list. Again, all defense first and foremost. Defensive tackle has always been kind of my number 1 go-to. Just a little concerned about that. Cornerback number 2. At least there's bodies back there, like you said. 2 through 5, it's a hodgepodge back there, but at least there's guys, and you just trust Flores to put out the best 2-3 guys on every down. But I think it was maybe only a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, 3-4 episodes ago, we were talking about. You asked us, okay, what's the biggest OTA or mini camp, just kind of news and notes that you guys have heard? And I asked you guys with a straight face, until Hawkinson gets back, is Aaron Jones the 3rd best pass catching option on the team until he gets back? I was dead serious. Like, we don't know. Like, hopefully Naylor, to some degree, still got some hope. I don't know enough about Sherfield to say anything confidently one way or the other. Haven't watched him with my own 2 eyes yet. I do like Brandon Powell. Like, we've had this
Johnny
conversation before, though. I like Brandon Powell a lot better as my wide receiver 4 than I do as my wide receiver 3. So, yeah, like you guys kind of laid out, there's a lot more options and flexibility you can do on offense. I will say, in that article Alec Lewis posted about this, he did mention the Vikings, I think, ranked 2nd in the league the past 2 years in 11 personnel on 3rd down. Now, obviously, a lot of different factors with that.
Yeah.
No run game, that certainly plays a factor. Hopefully, if you have any resemblance of a run game this year, you're not going to be in so many 3rd and long situations this year. So hopefully that's not as big of a storyline, if you will. But yeah, it's going to be interesting until Hawkinson gets back. Who is the actual guy out on the field in 11 personnel when it's 3rd and 12. But I still think, again, defensive tackle, cornerback, linebacker, like Arif mentioned, those are kind of more pressing needs, or at least more hot topics, I feel like, that need to be kind of weeded out during training camp.
And I don't really mind if this is a by committee thing either. If it's Jalen Naylor, I
probably will be.
Like Brandon Powell might get half those snaps, and that would be fine too. I just know that it is kind of stunk in years past when the wide receiver, and you want to downplay it when you have 2 top receivers on the depth chart, but when you don't have a third, like when you're trotting out Treadwell, you're trotting out Tajay Sharp and Michael Floyd in spots, and
Aldrick
Chad
Robinson.
Beebe. Aldrick Robinson was a
Whoa,
legend.
hey, his per target production
Let's go. Come on.
outstanding.
Yeah, get out of here. Get out
He
of
missed
here,
Case Keenum by 1 year. That would have been ultimate schoolyard
Oh my
awesomeness.
god, that would have been fun.
Ooh, Keenum definitely coming up in our final segment where we rank the top out-of-nowhere Vikings QB seasons in team history. I've also got the craziest Randall Cunningham stat that anyone has ever heard. One of the great stats, I think, in NFL
preview
history.
for one of the top rankers as well, huh?
Yeah.
Giving the game away.
That's coming up. That's coming up next on the Minnesota Football Party. Wow, that was quick. Subscribe, Locked On Sports Minnesota, and please help us get to 8,000 subscribers. Time now for the greatest intro in podcasting history.
This is Minnesota Sports Rankum, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Can we go 5 deep for this list? 5 out of nowhere Vikings QB
I only got
seasons.
4.
Can we? Man, okay. I'm excited to hear you guys is like 4 and 5 then, because it was. I mean,
Yeah, I've got some names
depends on
that
what
are
you
like
consider out of
borderline.
nowhere, I guess.
Yeah, like
Jeff
some of these are
George
like
going
not.
8-2,
There's one that I could
is
like
out of
kind of
nowhere?
argue, but it wasn't a very good team season. But yeah.
All right. Well, so I would say for my 5 is Favre, and he's not
Okay,
high on
I
the
was-
list.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna.
I did not
wonder-
count Favre.
Yeah, so that's
I think
the
is
thing.
arguable. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing about Favre is that like, obviously the season was great.
Right.
It's the out of nowhereness that changes the
I will
like,
say,
how
though,
out of nowhere.
Remember, terrible
was
with the
Yeah.
Jets. Everybody,
It was
a lot of people
speculated
say
for like 2
Cole.
years too.
That's
Right.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, but the thing with the terrible about the Jets is that like it was only for the second half of the season with the Jets that he
And he
was
was hurt.
actually
And
yeah, and he was
injury,
hurt.
injury related. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like yeah, his season-long numbers weren't great. I don't know, like that one's an interesting one to me because in terms of seasons, it's number 2, but in terms of out of nowhere seasons, I didn't.
Yeah, there was
but
so
yeah,
much
he's
more
on.
slow. It wasn't a given.
Yeah.
Though. It wasn't a given. What happened was going to happen that season. But I'm with you. Yeah, obviously
He's number
not
1 on
that.
a lot of lists. Probably not this particular list, but that
So
would be
how
my
are
5.
we? Are we ranking this by like here are the out of nowhere seasons, and then we're ranking them by how good they were, or are we ranking them by like how much better they were than we thought?
Both are a sliding scale that interact with each other.
Okay,
in
so it's
ways
how
that we
much
will
better they are than we
arbitrarily
thought
determine.
they would be.
Sure. I mean, if you want to put a parameter over it.
I think that basically is the dynamic of how those two
We
things
want
interact,
Luke
right?
Braun's subjective ranking, and then we will debate you, and Arif will fight you about it.
Yeah, fight me. I have Cunningham
anything.
first then because
Well,
he was
spoil-
coming
don't
out of
spoil
retirement.
number 1 right away. I mean, you got to build.
play the
Oh.
intro again. Let's
Cut.
and,
Editing this part
look,
out.
and-
Look, no, but he was coming out of retirement. He started 1998 as a backup. He got
was
in
in
for
a
spot
granite
duty in
mine.
97.
He was in
Yeah.
a granite mine.
This is
Danny Green is like, hey,
obscene.
man,
Yeah.
you got to stop digging for rocks,
You
dude.
got a phone down there? Yeah, you got a phone. You got a hard line down there?
It'd be like Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement and then just like taking the Vikings to the championship. What? He's back? What?
Joe
Well,
Flacco in 5 years.
and he started as the backup to Brad Johnson.
To Brad Johnson.
Right.
Yeah, and then it was like, okay, we're going to need you to play. And he's like, oh, you're going to need me to light fire to the world? Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Speaking of lighting fire to the world, the second one for me is Case Keenum. What?
Yeah.
That's one
Yeah,
and two.
what?
That's gotta be 1 and 2, right? That's gotta be.
Got to be the easy 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
it's
feel
easy,
like
but
you could make
okay.
a case Keenum as 1. Can you make a? Do either of you have Keenum as 1?
You could make that
No,
case
it's-
based on like because he
'cause out
wasn't
of
supposed to be good
nowhere.
ever,
Out of
and
nowhere.
Cunningham
Right,
was good
but
at
like-
both.
Nowhere.
Undrafted, yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
but like, not only did Cunningham retire, he was injured and benched, right?
Okay, but
prior to-
Cunningham, what
And
had
that
MVP
offense
vote.
broke records. Like that was a better
Cunningham
quarterback
was
season.
a Pro Bowler at that point, though. Yes, you're right. He was in about. But,
Yeah, but he was
but
5
good
years
at one point.
he was
at
5
one
years
point, we
removed from
knew
a Pro Bowl.
He could throw the
Like-
football and be good. Keenum, we never knew. We had no idea. We had nothing to go off.
Oh,
But, that,
Great
but that's it.
point.
But like,
Out
Keenum
of
was 2
nowhere.
years removed from a 5,000-yard season. Mind you, he was in college. But
Okay.
but what I'm saying
Me
is
too. Okay.
no. What I'm saying is that Keenum more recently had a good year throwing a ball.
I'm not arguing
Right?
that. I can't argue that. I can't argue that. You're right. You're right.
Case Keenum entered Minnesota with a 9-15 record. Cunningham from 95 to 2001. If you exclude 98, he was 7-11. So like just like blip on the radar
Yeah.
seasons.
Yeah.
Keenum hadn't really done. He started 0-8. Remember 0-8 his first season. And then at age 29, I thought he had a bad camp that year too. I thought there was no chance that he was gonna be serviceable in instead of Bradford. So that
It'd be like a semifinal run from like Easton Stick. Like who?
Don't invoke disaster, dude. I don't need another NDSU quarterback doing this kind of stuff.
Now
I'll move on then.
yeah, go ahead.
The next one on my list, and ranking, I actually struggle with how to rank 3 and 4, but I do think that 87 Wade Wilson comes next as a backup coming in off the strike, by the way. So it's just a weird year all around. Tommy Kramer had been hurt a lot, and he got hurt again. But we had like a different backup this time. But who's to say this wasn't just going to be Steve Dills again or Scott Salisbury again? But Wade Wilson actually played really well and took him to the end. So we have 3 NFC championship seasons here from out of nowhere quarterbacks. It's kind of how the Vikings do it. And it's still, and then the one we argued was a 4th.
Right. Well, okay. So to that end, how much does like a Gary Cuozzo like relate? To
I didn't put Cuozzo on because he was really bad. He got benched for a punter.
okay, yes, but the 1970 season was a dead average 1970 quarterback season, which is way better than anyone could have possibly expected. It was a good team season too. They were like 10-2 with him as a starter.
Yeah, it was a lot of purple people eaters. That was in the greatest three-year stretch of defense ever by points per game.
He's an undrafted free agent for the Baltimore Colts, right? Sticks with them for a while, gets traded to the New Orleans Saints for some stupid reason. That the Saints in the 70s screwing up. That's amazing, right? Who could have seen that coming? Gets cut from the Saints, ends up on the Vikings. He's a third-string quarterback in 1968, backup in 1969, and the only reason he's playing, I think, is because of the Joe Cap holdout.
Joe Cap left. Yeah, he was in Boston that year.
Yeah.
And they just didn't get another quarterback. They just kind of rolled with Gary Cuozzo. It was it kind of feels like what they're doing with Blake Brandel right now, where it's like, nah, he'll be fine. And then he was, and then he pissed away the playoff game. He was horrible.
Right, but my point is, like, they traded away Joe Cap to Boston because he wanted any money, which Joe Cap was right. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and then what he did in Boston ended up setting up what we now know as free agency. So.
Yeah. So, and then Cuozzo put in a dead average season, which allowed them to go 10-2. So I'm not saying he's up there with Keenum, but I'm saying, like, as an out of nowhere, this guy is dog water, right? As an out of nowhere season, that's pretty all right.
Yeah, it'd be like getting an average season from like Sam Darnold right now, I feel like, where it's like, that guy sucked before and he did like, I guess, a little better, but it doesn't astound me in the same way that the 4th one on this list astounded me and everybody, which was Gus Frerotte in 2008.
In 2008?
We had t-shirts, man.
Man, you've omitted like my number 2. That's crazy.
Oh, really? What's your number 10?
Bernard Berrien, Monday Night Football, 99-yard touchdown.
Was it Brad Johnson? You can't put Tommy Kramer. He's a first-round pick.
I thought about Brad Johnson, too.
Can we reestablish your top four? You're going Cunningham, Keenum,
Wade Wilson, Gus Frerotte. And if I had to do a fifth, it probably would be Brad Johnson.
All right, so you've omitted Jeff George. Jeff George in 99?
Going 8-2 for Randall Cunningham in 99?
Winning a playoff
Wasn't
game?
he kind of good coming off? Or was that out of nowhere?
Jeff George was pretty out of nowhere. So Jeff George was, if you exclude
he did get
99,
votes for comeback player of the year that year, so which would suggest that it's at least a little out of nowhere.
All right, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that better than Brad Johnson.
How about weeks 1 through 5 in 2016, Sam Bradford coming in out of nowhere. Teddy just got hurt. Hey, let's trade for this guy. Okay, goes 5-0 first 5 weeks. Forget about the rest.
They traded a first-round pick for that guy. That's not out of nowhere.
Yeah, but as far as the clock goes, like I've been in the building for 2 weeks, dude, and
I mean, it was impressive.
I got nothing. It was
impressive, not out of nowhere.
Okay, how about honorable mention?
Gets traded for
honorable
a
mention. Yes.
Pick.
By the way, Jeff George, 3 seasons prior to Minnesota, was 7-19.
Washington.
Okay,
Atlanta and Oakland.
Okay.
His Oakland numbers are very funny, so I want to give him that. That
he flamed out because of like personality issues a lot of the time too.
Yeah,
not just getting cut for not being good enough.
And he'll tell you about it. He was pretty talented with Oakland. Obviously, it's 4-12 team, right? But he overperformed the talent level of that Raiders unit to a pretty significant degree. And 2 years later, he's a Viking and he's playing well. So to me, it's not that out of nowhere, but I get where you're coming from, right? That it'd been a bit since people had considered him to be quite good. He ends up on comeback player of the year ballot, so that would suggest that a lot of people were very surprised by his level of performance. But he goes from like one of the worst offensive supporting casts to the best.
Yeah.
He was exactly what that team needed. That's really the thing that like sticks out to me about Jeff George.
Inarguably a total stud that year. Like he was awesome. Yeah. It's not like so the Wade Wilson thing, I think I would nitpick and say one of the great unexpected postseason runs of all time. The regular season didn't do it for a long time. He was 5-2 that year, and then like 14 TDs, 13 picks. Like it wasn't.
It was a strike shortened year. It was a weird year, which is kind of feeding into it a little bit. Where like, the magic was in the air, right? Like the black dark cloud of magic was in the air.
Still the last quarterback to win 2 playoff games for the Vikings. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
In a season.
So when we talk Brad Johnson, are we talking 2005 Brad Johnson coming in for Culpepper, coming out like I don't know.
I was going to say, wasn't 96 his first year as a starter?
96 would have been the year I picked.
5-3.
Yeah.
96.
I like the 05 poll. That was pretty because that was right after Dante blew up his knee.
Right.
The season Love Boat happened.
He
the season
went 2
was
and
toast.
5. Yep, season was toast.
Almost made the playoffs.
Johnson comes in, goes 7-2. Yep.
If they make the playoffs, that probably is on the list.
Probably on the list.
I mean, but like here's like Brad Johnson, 9th round pick, because that's what you could do. 9th round pick is on the bench for 2 years. I think he's the 3rd string and then the 2nd string in 95.
Super Bowl quarterback by that point. So I don't know how. Look, if Lions fans get to say it about Jared Goff going to a Super Bowl.
Of course. I had Super Bowl quarterback at that time. And then shows up in 96 and produces like fairly good numbers. Not like blistering numbers, but fairly good numbers in 96. That's
and was not supposed to play that year, I believe.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be Warren Moon.
Right, that's right. Yeah, because he backed up like he backed up someone else in 94, backs up Warren Moon in 95, right?
Warren Moon was there from 94 to 96, but I think he missed like all of the season in 96, if I recall.
Yeah, and because he was drafted in 92, so he was like at the backup.
Yeah, he was backup with like in the Rich Gannon years, and then Jim McMahon came. It was like a whole bunch of weird stuff, and he was like the QB3. It was like a Jared Hall situation.
So for him showing up in 96 was huge.
Yeah, 9th. I get what you're saying. 9th round pick, nobody knows. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I'm just terrified of running out of time for this, and I want to sneak it in. So the Randall Cunningham stat that will blow you away.
Okay.
So 1998, Cunningham comes in, and that offensive line was awesome. Super well protected. Only got sacked 20 times the entire year. Very, very well protected. Randall Cunningham
who has
led the
league in sacks.
In sacks taken 5 previous times in his career, including, you got to go to his 1986 game logs, guys. This is unbelievable. Randall Cunningham in 1986 set an NFL record, 72 sacks taken, and he started 5 games.
Oh my gosh! How many games did he play in? How many games did he actually play in?
Remarkably,
just curious.
that team was in a lot of blowouts for good and for bad, and they always put in Cunningham. So he racked up 3, 4, 5 sacks per game in mop-up duty.
Wow!
And then when he started,
That's so funny.
You all don't understand. He only had 209 attempts that year, so 25% of his dropbacks were sacks. A bad sack percentage is like 9.
in his game started, he took 10, 9, 11, 10, and 5 sacks in those 5 games.
No wonder he became a born-again Christian. I was hitting that bat all the time. I'd find God, too.
And for how bad that was, David Carr still ranked higher at 76 and number 3 on the list, too, at 68.
Well, imagine if he had started the whole season, man. That would have been... I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't have stayed 25% the whole time. But that's...
I didn't realize Sam Howell's number 4 on this list last year, 65 sacks taken in Washington. Wow, right up there.
Well, I don't.
That is incredible, though, Sam. That is.
I like Cunningham, and I don't like Sam Howell, so I'm just going to say it's a skill issue for Sam Howell and a tragedy for Cunningham.
Yep.
What's the next great out of nowhere QB season? Who's it going to be?
Sam Howell.
Darnold. So Darnold. That's the whole reason I
Darnold.
came over this. Darnold qualifies, right?
Easily.
If this is, what's the threshold? 10, 11 wins.
If playoffs, probably.
Playoff appearance.
Like playoffs, but real playoffs, not like you like limped into the 7th seed as an 8-win team and then you got destroyed.
So in our final minute, I think we all agree Cunningham probably won. 2 debatable though. We've got who vote? Let's vote. Keenum. Hands up for Keenum.
For 2? Yeah.
For 2.
For 2, I'll go Keenum 2.
Okay,
but
so Keenum wins.
So not that debatable.
I think it was close.
And then number 3, I would have voted. I would have voted Keenum 3, but because he's on the list, I'd put George. Definitely next.
George 3.
And you made a good argument. I'm gonna wait.
I put George on my list because of your argument, but I put him 4th.
Yeah, I was going to put him 4th.
And you had Favre at 5, Sam?
I had Wilson at 4, Favre at 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Wilson at 3. I've got Gus Frerotte at 5, and I didn't count Favre as out of nowhere enough.
Yeah, so I would
Frerodte's
put I'd put Wilson at 3, I'd put George at 4, and I'd put Favre at 5. And then Brad Johnson, honorable mention.
I think, I think I'd have the same list.
I like it. That was fun. We'll do it again Thursday. We'll also hear from Ron Johnson on the Minnesota Football Party. Hey, smash the subscribe button. Listen on Locked On Vikings. That's Luke Inman, Luke Braun, Arif Hasan. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you Thursday.